Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Generic Garage. On today's episode, we're going to try to get some more progress made with these headers. I tried to model up the last mock-up that we made in SolidWorks, and when I put everything in there and rotated everything right where it needed to be, I had issues with different pieces colliding with each other or going through each other. So the mock-up that we had in the real world didn't work on the computer. And that's probably because these plastic pieces are flexible and they can bend, but the metal is not going to be able to do that. We might be able to angle them slightly and then fill in the weld, or fill in the gap where the weld would be. I wanted to make sure that whatever we were putting together here could be created again. And so if we can make sure it works in the real world and make sure it works in the computer, I think we're going to be really successful. So what I ended up doing was taking all of that apart and then starting over, and whatever I would put a piece on the real world mock-up, I would go and model that piece on the computer. Out here, in there, back and forth all day long. And what I found is what's currently on the Ranger now. All of those start off with a 1.75 inch centerline radius bend. It was really the only way I could be sure that everything was gonna clear. So I went on Amazon and I got those 1.75 inch centerline radii bends. And here they are. We got 4 of them. We cleaned them out. So I think we're all set up and ready to go. That being said, stick around. Okay, here is our basic setup that we've got in SolidWorks. I've copied in all of the components that I can use that we have tubes for. And I've located the header flanges exactly where they need to be relative to each other and lined them all up. And so now what I'm gonna do is just start copying parts and mating them together and rotating them into the right place. We're just gonna go through this real quick. So here I am copying a bunch of pieces, doing a bunch of mates, making sure everything's aimed the right way. And you can see once I get the surfaces mated together, I'm able to rotate parts around and then line up those indicator marks where they need to be. And this actually took a little while because all the little details on these pieces made the computer run a little bit slower. And I don't have a slow computer. This is an i9 9900KS with 32 gigs of DDR4 3000 megahertz RAM and a couple solid states in it. And the computer is actually really fast, but I'm running on some older mining graphics cards, some RX 580s. So things were just a little slow. And I think some of these graphics cards are a little worn out because SolidWorks does have some issues. If I open more than one part at a time, everything kind of goes black in the screen. I have to reload SolidWorks and open up just one part at a time. But doing it this way, I didn't have to have multiple assemblies or parts open, so it worked out all right. It just took a while to do everything, especially rotating these components once they're snapped together. It took it a little while to figure everything out. But we were mocking up everything that you saw in the last video. Right at the end of the video, we had a mock-up laying on the ground, so I was looking at what was on the mock-up and then pulling those parts into SolidWorks and making sure that everything was going to fit. But in the end, what ended up happening once I started trying to add more components to this based on what was on the mock-up that we had put together, it ended up with tubes running into each other and things being angled the wrong way. So I had to start over. So now what we have is this model right here, and I've color coded everything so that it looks just like the mock-up that's currently sitting on the truck. You can see that there are some funky bends in here. Like, why would I do this to this to this to this when I could just find a straight path to this orange straight down here? And that's because this not only has to fit between the engine and the steering shaft, but I also have to work around the shape of the heads and the shape of the block. And so if I had just done a straight path from here to here, the heads, actually the base of the heads come along in a flat trajectory along this path, and I would have hit the bottom of the head. So actually the spacing and the clearance in here is extremely tight. And this works in SolidWorks. And you can see there's, you know, it's real close, but it's not touching. And it also works in the real world because it's currently what's sitting on the truck. So what we're gonna do now is go try to create these pieces. We're gonna pull them off the truck and create marks on everything and cut things on the bandsaw and try to duplicate what we have here in SolidWorks and what we have on the truck. And those two are one and the same. right, well, that went in there nice and easy. The only thing was I had to take the spark plugs out to get the header in. Not a big deal, I think that's pretty common. That first cylinder up there, that first exhaust tube, we could probably move that up just a little bit, and I guess I mean rotate it up, because it's real close to the motor mount down there. So the way the old system used to work was that it would connect to this tube in front of the transmission, between the transmission and the oil pan. And I don't think I want to do that anymore. I don't want to cross over right there. Every time I did an oil change last time, I used to get oil on the exhaust. So what we're looking at doing now is moving our collector somewhere around here. I probably want to bring it back a little bit behind this subframe connector here. And I want to do that on both sides. So what we have to do now is connect the rest of those tube ends and bring them back here to the collector, and then still make sure that we can install the headers and get it where it needs to be. That's the challenge. The only way I could get those headers in was from underneath. So this might be harder than it looks. And instead of having both of the exhaust pipes run on the same side, we're gonna have one on each side of the transmission. So one's gonna go right here, straight back. The other one's gonna come from here and go straight back. And I think that'll alleviate some of the exhaust issues I was having before. And hopefully we can make that work. And we can slide both of them in. That's gonna be the challenge. It looks like now we need to kind of go towards the driver's side with the exhaust that's there. That is going to be it for today's episode. I want to take a second to thank everybody who is liking, commenting, subscribing, and even just watching these videos. I really appreciate it. With that being said, on the next video, I'm going to attempt to try to get all of those pipes collected on the driver's side into the collector, and that'll give us a nice measurement of where we want to be with the passenger side, and then we'll just repeat the process all over again for the passenger side, and we're that much closer to having the truck running. From there, it's just a little bit more work to finish up the exhaust and get it out the back. And yeah, all right. Thank y'all again. Everybody stay safe. Have a great week. Take care.